So, I put up a video recently that talked about whether or not note takers were still relevant, and Aaron Linson had put up a response that really got me thinking. The integrated Braille support, and the one thing that I actually had thought of during the video that he didn't comment on, nor did I, was these are extremely proprietary devices, and of course if you're a fan of free software, you would probably be ready to run to the nearest trash can and lose your lunch. There is a reason why the software is proprietary. Do you know how much this thing costs? I can't give you an exact number, but the round figure is $5,000. $5,000. As a result, a lot of people would actually take this and use it as their primary computer, if possible, for their needs, versus getting a more mainstream device. And again, it has to do with the more integrated approach and specifically developed for people who are blind. Now, not everybody does that, mind you. Not everybody does that. But if you want to get something that is more specific to your needs as somebody with a vision problem, I can see where utilizing this device as a full-on computer would certainly be of interest. I mean, this is a computer, with the exception of being able to load. Well, you can load certain applications, but they need to be developed specifically for this unit. You cannot go out onto the internet and download the latest version of Excel. It's just not possible. But in terms of basic needs, you've got Google Talk, you've got 802.11n wireless, you've got a web browser, you've got a word processor, you've got a book player, you've got integrated Google Search, which is pretty new. That's unique to this device, by the way. You've got Google Maps, which is actually another first in the industry. You've got 32 gigs of onboard storage, which in the sighted community you may think, it's okay. And certainly if you are an audiophile, you may think the same thing. But if you're somebody who is primarily looking at text files and text-based content, then 32 gigs is a lot of space. In addition to that, you can expand with up to 64 gigs of SD removable flash memory, as well as, I think they said 3 USB slots on the unit. So if you were to let's just go ahead and do round figures because I'm better at computing round figures in my head. So let's just say, 30 gigs of onboard plus 60 of the SD, that's like 90 gigs, plus 60 on a thumb drive. Now, I haven't seen any 64 gig thumb drives, but I'm sure they're out there somewhere. So let's say 60, so that'd be 150, then, well, you get the idea. Basically, you load up all the USB ports with flash drives and the internal memory and the SD card slot. In total, you've got as much flash memory, or more even, than the MacBook Air that I'm recording this on. Now, some of you who are new to my channel and may not understand the technology, you may ask, why in the name of pulled pork sandwiches is this thing so gosh darned expensive? First of all, let me zoom in so I can see this better. Where my cursor is, these little pins here, these little dots, that is a Braille display. Now, for those of you who are old enough and remember fax machines, and you remember they have those single-line dot matrix displays, think of that except for your fingers. Okay? That's the big thing. That is the most exorbitant cost in this device, are these 32 characters right here. You're also looking at a very low volume market. I mean, how many people off the street would go ahead and buy one of these? Probably not, right? They'd see the sticker shock and say, well, I can do just as well with my MacBook Air. But the truth is, they don't need this sort of device. But there are a lot of people who can benefit from this device, especially if they're a competent brailleist. I myself know grade 1 like the back of my hand, and I'm very familiar with grade 2. I don't know everything. Well, I know the contractions, but on occasion I may get confused with the rules, but it's not uncommon. There are over 150 contractions, and it's hard to keep everything straight. But I know enough to where I could get by and in grade 2 and fly in grade 1. So I could easily use this. In fact, I've been brushing up on my grade 2 Braille with an app that I recently downloaded on my Galaxy Note. But I apologize for getting sidetracked. But the point is, somebody like me could certainly make use of this device, even though it does cost the $5,000 price tag. Now, here's a question. For those of you who do know me, you know that my vision is stable. It's around 2100 or so. My peripheral vision absolutely stinks. So why would I want this? Would I be able to benefit from this? Let me explain. I am currently working on my thesis in educational technology, and I sit at the computer for hours at a day writing, and I've noticed that to give my eyes a break, I would switch on the screen curtain on my Macintosh, as well as the voiceover screen reader. Relying on speech alone is not enough. I'll give you an example. The words T-H-E-R-E and T-H-E-I-R. Both of them are pronounced there, correct? Well, if you're relying specifically on speech alone, what happens is you don't know what spelling it is unless you stop and change your navigation technique to go back and take a look at the word and make sure that it's spelled properly. Whereas if you have refreshable Braille, you can easily just take a quick glance on your display and see, oops, that word is misspelled, and then you can hit this button up here. It's like taking your mouse and putting the cursor in Microsoft Word on a misspelled letter of a word. That's what the cursor routing key, which is this row of keys up here, each character has one. That's what the cursor routing key does. It's like putting your cursor in Microsoft Word on a misspelled letter of a word. So it's much faster to get things done in Braille. Now, I've noticed that I've been using speech more than I have in the past. I really should. My vision is stable, but I really should be using speech from time to time because I do have only one eye for seeing, and if you sit in front of the computer for 8 hours a day, which I'm positive I'll be doing also for my job, because I'm looking at going into instructional design after I graduate, which is going to be basically developing software that teachers would use, I could see myself sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. That can get pretty strenuous on your only seeing eye. And also, with this device, for instance, you could open up the word processor and easily, it wouldn't be as fluid, because you would have to load up the web browser. You would have to save your file, open it up in your web browser, which basically means you'd be going back and forth. For Windows users, it would be like Alt-tabbing. For Mac users, it would be like Command-tabbing between, say, your Firefox and your text editor. So it wouldn't be quite as straightforward, but it can be done. I could certainly see myself editing code here on this device. And there's just I don't know how to explain this, but I want to keep the vision that I have. And nobody can predict tomorrow. So you can certainly see where a device like this might come in handy. Oh, I forgot to mention, this actually doubles. I think in my last video I made a mention of a Braille display, a dedicated Braille display for the Macintosh, which I used the EasyLink 12 as an example. All note takers, including the one you see before you, the Braille Sense, can function as a Braille display for Windows, Macintosh, and iOS devices. I don't know if it could work with Android. I haven't tried. Or I haven't looked. But the question is, hang on. $10 o'clock already. But the question is, now you understand where I'm coming from, what I would like to do with the device, which is basically use it as a speech computer to help save my sight. Now, it is stable, but I've noticed that I spend so much time in front of screens. Like, I like to watch Netflix on my Galaxy Note 2. And sometimes I'll be multitasking. Like, if I'm not doing any of my classwork and I'm just doing leisure stuff, I'll be switching between, say, chatting with people on iChat or Skype and watching my movie on the on my Galaxy. Now, yes, I could certainly try to get Netflix running on my Mac, but the last time I tried, it was extremely jittery.
It's 10 o'clock p.m.
So, you know, having to go between screens definitely is also burdensome. Also adds burden to your vision. So, a lot of people would say, well, just turn the screen off. We already talked about that. We talked about how just having speech alone, especially when you're doing critical schoolwork or writing a report for your boss, that's not enough. You need some way to verify the information. And if you're using speech alone, that, you know, it's going to be more difficult. Whereas if you have Braille access, it's going to be a lot easier. So you understand what I would like to do. The question is it worth the $5,000 price tag? Aaron certainly believes it is. He's got some vision. I've got some vision. You can take a look at the video response he put into, if you go down and take a look at my video, Is the Notetaker Still Relevant? I had approved a video response that he'd put up under the same name. And you can watch his response. But he's got some vision. I've got some vision. I primarily use magnification, but I'm debating whether or not a switch to Braille might not be beneficial. Not full time, but just to give my eyes a break. And if I were to do that, I would certainly like to probably go with a dedicated note taker. If you go back to my video on Braille and Speak, way back when in 2009, that's a note taker. By today's standards, it's a complete dinosaur, but it is a note taker. It had a very basic word processor, nothing near as advanced. The word processor that's in the Braille Sense is essentially a Microsoft Word lookalike. I mean, it's been built with the blind in mind, but you've got all the major editing features that you would find in Microsoft Word. Whereas the one in the Braille and Speak felt more like a notepad or text editor, a notepad for Windows or text edit for the Macintosh. But it worked. It worked, and I remember using it as my phone book. There's just something, I don't know how to explain it. There's just something humbling about having a speech-only interface. But for those of you who know me and know that I have some vision, is it worth, $5,000 to save what you have? Oh, there's one more thing. I wanted to address one of the lights up here. You got your wireless, Bluetooth. This third one is actually GPS. This is also the first Notetaker to have onboard GPS. I think I mentioned Google Maps earlier. My family and I will take trips sometimes, road trips, and I would be the primary navigator. And we have a dedicated GPS unit. And usually, if the maneuver comes within the next 20 to 30 minutes, I'll be looking at that screen nonstop to make sure that we're on the right track. But again, you see, again, that's an example, staring at electronic screens. I don't know. What do you guys think? I hadn't even thought about it until Aaron made the points that he did. One of which is security, or I mentioned security. One of which is that these applications are pretty much foolproof. They've been built with the blind in mind, and because of the exorbitant cost of the device. Now, granted, like I said, this is a computer. It's a special type of computer, but it is a computer. The cost requires them to take extra special care in developing the software to make sure that it's pretty much crash-proof. Now, again, it's not 100% crash-proof, but from what I understand, and certainly from my experience with the Braille and Speak, at least back when I was using it full-time before it went and hiccuped and went berserk, I hadn't had any problems with it. I mean, files were always there. I could go in and type a quick note. I mean, so basically I'm just asking your guys' opinion. Do you think it's worth the cost? Do you think that I could benefit from this, or am I just blowing smoke? Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.